Hello and welcome to the full moon walkthrough for the lunar eclipse in Pisces of September 2024. I'm your astrologer Cawnawyn, and today we're going to take a look at the chart. I'm hoping to give you some ideas on how to read the chart if you're new to astrology, a sort of introductory look at how to look at a full moon chart, and then also give you a bit of a forecast and what I am taking out of the astrology for this full moon. So let's take a look. Here we have our lunar eclipse in Pisces. As a quick reminder, I always do my charts with a 0 degrees Aries rising, so the chart's house structure is not going to matter for this forecast. If you take September 17th at 7:34 Pacific time and apply that to whatever time zone you are in and take a look at the chart for you, the houses will look different and you can glean more information from the placements of the planets in the houses for your community, for your collective in your area. And then also you can take this point and use this as a transit chart against your own natal chart and see where these planets are showing up for you within your own natal structure, seeing if you have any conjunctions or aspects with natal planets, especially at this point of 25 degrees where the full moon is happening. So 25 degrees of Pisces and 25 degrees of Virgo where the sun is. If you have planets around that position, that's going to greatly impact you during this full moon. You can glean more information that way. But for this specific forecast, I don't talk about the houses. We just focus on the planetary positions and the aspects that they're making. If we take a look at this, of course, we have our opposition here. Here's our sun at 25 degrees of Virgo, and then we have it opposing our moon at 25 degrees of Pisces. And this opposition is what creates that full moon. Now we also have an eclipse energy that we're dealing with. And so if we look at our moon, this is right near our nodal point. This is the north node of the moon, and this is the south node of the moon over here in Libra, close by to our sun. So when our lunation is happening near these nodal points, that is what creates the eclipse, because that is our ecliptic and the northernmost and southernmost point of the moon's orbit around the sky. The north node and the south node are not planetary bodies in the sky. They are positions of the moon. So when we have the full moon or the new moon happen near these points, that's what creates the eclipse in the chart. So we're going to discuss a little bit about how the eclipse energy specifically is factoring into this moon. For the most part, we're going to focus also on just the moon itself and the different planets that are being activated. But of course, we want to touch on the eclipse because it's a big deal. Taking a look at this axis of Virgo to Pisces. Whenever I think of this axis, the word that always comes up for me is service. Now Virgo, if we look at where our sun, our collective soul, is currently in Virgo season, and we think about, okay, Virgo season, we're mutable, changing into the fall up in the northern hemisphere, of course spring for the southern. So we're taking stock of all of that we've gained from the summertime, the big harvest of summer and the fruits that we've labored over, and now it's a matter of narrowing it down and picking what is useful to get us through the next few seasons of cold winter months coming way ahead. And so we think about the mastery, the purification, the perfection of Virgo, and taking a large sum of information and making it very practical, making it useful, gleaning what is important, what is to be saved, what is to be acknowledged, and then sort of discarding of the rest. And so in a Virgo is about like perfecting those systems, mastering those systems, and teaching what we can from those systems in order to better impact and improve everything. That is what Virgo is in service of, is the service of improvement. This is why Virgos get the stereotype of being so critical, because of course that takes amount of critique in order to find what is useful. They make great editors for that reason as well, taking the best of the crop and using that. Also, being able to amass a large amount of information down into what is actually practical, what is grounded. It is an earth energy. If we think about its opposite of Pisces, right? Pisces is really able to take in a much greater, larger picture, because Virgo is very concerned with the minor, the small, the miniature in some ways, whereas Pisces can really like think internally about a much more vast scope. And so they're able to take into account their small, humble place within a large, greater universe. They're able to take a look at this big picture and not only look at it, but really empathetically connect with all of human experience, all of the universe, all of spiritual truth. They can hold a much larger space within their tiny selves. And they can kind of conceptualize where they are within all of that in that humble way, then acting in service to an emotional truth of being able to take into account what everybody is feeling, whatever truths might be gained, that are not being said, right? And what is the deeper meaning of, and then being able to meet people where they're at with compassion, with grace, with love. If we think about this axis of service, right, this Pisces is really going beyond maybe what is practical or even realistic, because they're able to see and to reach within and grab and hold space for in a very, very deep, meaningful, compassionate way. But it's nothing that's tangible, right? Or Virgo is like, really, what can I take from this that's actually going to work, and what can I see in front of me, and what can I place and put and organize in order to make this system more useful for all of us. So they both definitely have incredible, profound power to be useful, to be of service, but in very, very different ways. And it's important that we remember to balance these two energies. And this is so much what this opposition is about. So if we think about an opposition, right, this can show up in our relationships. So maybe you're acting more in this place of the archetype of Virgo, the sun being in Virgo, where you're like, I need to get more practical. I need to improve the system. I need to find what is useful. What have I learned? What have I gained? What is the thing that I'm choosing to step forward into? What are the small practices and habits and routines that I need to step into, or that I'm trying to craft and build around myself so I can get through whatever journey is coming next? Or you might be finding yourself standing in the place of the Pisces archetype of the moon, of being able to sort of let go of some of the minor details and say, okay, but like, what is the point? What is the deeper truth here? What is the meaning of all of this? How can I maybe merge on a more like emotional plane with somebody and get away from all of the details, just to like find what is their soul trying to tell me, right? And there's nothing tangible about it, but there's a truth there that we feel and we know intrinsically within our bodies, and we're just learning to trust in it and have faith in it. Ultimately, Pisces is truly here to build faith within something that is not tangible. And if we look at that even further, look at where the moon is squashed between Neptune and Saturn here, right? So it's applying to Neptune. That means it's getting closer to Neptune, because Neptune's at 28 degrees, and the moon will be on Neptune within hours of this full moon happening. So I would definitely consider this Neptunian influence to be huge. It's conjunct the moon for this full moon. And if we think about that higher side of Neptune, that is truly this like boundless, unconditional love, compassion, and grace, that it extends far beyond the reaches of, any limitations, because Neptune is what is boundless, what is infinite. It is much larger in scope than we can even possibly imagine. When the moon's influence is there, Neptune can also bring us into the realm of fantasy, the realm of illusion, or maybe delusion. It can bring up sort of a self-sabotage, because there's a surrender there that maybe isn't as healthy for us if we're looking at the more shadow side of Neptune. This is why intoxication is associated with Neptune. So these themes might be coming up for you, or maybe you're seeing them play out in other people and you're going, like, hey, have you thought about getting practical and grounded in this Virgo energy? And so these relationships might be highlighting this axis here. We also have Saturn being activated with this moon. It was just activated, and I would definitely consider this still very much a co-presence with the moon in this time of the lunation. And so Saturn kind of gives this sobering view of like, hey, have you attended to all the responsibilities and all of the things? Have you disciplined yourself? Saturn can look very oppressive, but it can also be this source of grounding and of like necessary discipline. It's also acting in an opposition with not just the sun, but also Mercury in Virgo. So we really have this axis being highlighted with these planetary bodies right now during this full moon. And so you might be having this tug of war within yourself. It can also look like an authority figure coming toward you and saying like, hey, have you done all these things? And we're feeling oppressed by the weight of that pressure. And so maybe that's what's coming up for you. Or it doesn't even have to be a specific person or an authority figure. It could literally just be, have you you considered your responsibilities within the structure of this culture, within the expectations of our environment, of your job, of making a living, of, you know, what are the mundane things that like bear us down, and there are all these unknowns that are really hard to deal with. Because Saturn in Pisces is kind of reminding us that like when everything is stripped away, when we don't know what the future holds, what is the faith that we can ground ourselves on, and really grounding ourselves on, right? Like building upon. Faith is something that is intangible. It's not physical. It's not like a actual foundation of a house or a stone or anything. It is something that lives within inside of us. And so how can we fortify that with that Saturn in Pisces? So that's being highlighted all with this full moon too. Now we take into account the eclipse, okay? So here we have our nodes so close by, and this moon is coming into alignment with the North Node. This will be in the next day or so. And the North Node in Aries is really, and like again, even though this eclipse is happening in Pisces, the node being in Aries so close to this is an eclipse in Pisces. That's where the moon is reaching its full moon point. But it's going to cross over this node very closely, and so I'm going to take this nodal axis into account, and the North Node being in Aries. So the North Node in Aries is reminding us to step into our individual integrity and strength and bravery and courage, to step into what is it my soul wants? What is it my spirit needs? What is the passion that drives me, right? It is about relationship to self. And so this moon reminding us to take into account this much larger picture, because hey, what the heck is this all for? This is what our moon is reminding us of through these like experiences with Saturn, with that deeper sense of responsibility, with that Neptune, with what is our fantasy? What is the thing that we dream of, right? And connecting with that on a much deeper level in order to step into this North Node energy. Because over here in the Sun's energy next to Libra, that South Node in Libra, this could look like, you know, we've kept our head down, we've been doing the work, we've been doing the service, we've been improving the systems and doing our daily routines and our steps because we want to just keep our head down and make Libra, everybody else, happy, right? You know, and we've been trying to like make this system work, but maybe the system is not working. Maybe there needs to be a greater shift, a greater change. Part of the reason I want to bring this up is because Mars has been down here in Cancer, and it is exactly squaring the nodes at this time of the eclipse. Here's our square, right? It's exactly squaring the nodes. So what this is saying is that this is a point of Mars action on behalf of taking fated decisions that lie at this crux of the nodal axis. How are we stepping out of the sabotage of that South Node, out of those things that we need to grow away from, that we need to grow out of in order to access this North Node, and remembering that like, oh yeah, my soul is calling for me to take these steps, to take these actions. Mars is being activated in the sign of Cancer. So what can we do to Cancer? Nurture ourselves, care for ourselves, you know, really tap into an emotional truth within ourselves of what is it I need? What is it I need to feel safe, to feel secure, but also what is it I need to nurture my soul, my spirit, to feel like I'm connected in a deeper way with what my heart truly wants. This Mars is being run by the moon. The moon rolls over the sign of Cancer. Mars is absolutely at play here. And whenever we have eclipses, right, these are times of really fated decisions. I always say, if you have symbols coming out for you around this time, if you have messages, if you're seeing numbers repeated, or perhaps it's something that resonates with you coming in nature, or the same truth is being said over and over again in different ways around you, really take note of this, write it down, because some of these decisions that we make around this time can really have such a profound effect on us much later, right? If those small minor adjustments in our trajectory is what causes a much greater difference in results much later down the road, which is a perfect association with Virgo too, because Virgo is so much about the small minor steps and changes that affect a much greater result. So now it's even emphasized with this eclipse happening, because eclipse seasons are always about these fated decisions. So if you decide to start something right now, a project, a business, a relationship, this can have so much more of a profound effect than you even realize. Where this small decision here is what leads to a much greater networking connection, or perhaps a much larger opportunity, or a much deeper commitment with somebody much later down the road. So they're very, very important times to take stock of for that reason. And we are being challenged here to act, to make a choice. The last thing I want to mention is just that we have Uranus being activated here. The sun is in a trine with Uranus. Uranus is at the very end of Taurus. So this may truly come as a breakthrough. It also might come as a surprise that forces us, that prods us to act. Where it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. I should probably act on this decision now because this is coming up for me in reality. Remembering to look out for those surprises, to be open to sudden inspiration, to sudden breakthrough, because it may truly come as a, oh, aha moment of, I need to just approach it with this mindset, or I didn't take this into account, but of course this is the thing that's going to make that decision. So be open to these messages. Be open to the illumination that the full moon brings in this moment. And again, remembering to approach everything. Maybe you are acting in a way that has been sabotaging yourself, or maybe you are acting in a way that you've had to keep your head down and you haven't realized what this deeper truth is, or perhaps you've been living under a fantasy, a delusion. One thing I'll say about eclipses, right? If we think about the moon's light is being eclipsed, the truth may be being eclipsed. So what is not being said? What is being hidden? What are the things that we would rather not look at and shy away from? What is the truth that is being left unsaid here? I think that is what this eclipse can bring us in terms of an understanding. If we can be aware of what is not being said, what is being under the surface, we may have an easier time making that breakthrough decision that allows us to progress forward into where we want to be in alignment with ourselves. And also, what other people, what are they not saying, right? What is that truth? What can we read between the lines? And what is of value that is not being shared? So just some things to keep in mind and to be open to around this time. Doing any form of divination is definitely something I would recommend. So that way, again, some of these secrets, some of these truths can be exposed, and then we are actually able to better make these decisions and take into account the greater picture so we can affect those minor steps as we go forward. And remembering we're bringing all of this into balance. Not one side is right. There's truth in all of them. So what can we do to have a more integrated experience with all of the energy that's being presented? I do hope this is helpful to you, and thank you so much for watching up until this point. Remember that over on Bonfire Babble podcast, I always do a forecast for every season. So Libra season is coming right up with the equinox, and that will be out, and I have more on the next eclipse that we're having on October 2nd in Libra. That's a solar eclipse. We'll be in that forecast. I will of course see you back here next month for the full moon in Aries, so be sure to subscribe and let me know if this is resonating with you. I'd love to see your comments if this is something that is happening or playing out in your life and whatever your experience is. And be sure to like this video if you like the forecast. If of course you want more information, I do offer readings, so you can book with me on my online calendar, or you can also purchase a recorded reading where I get back to you with a recorded reading and your charts within 72 hours. And if you would like to be updated when these forecasts go live, be sure to sign up for my Blue Hour newsletter, and you will get notified within your inbox about all things astrology, as well as the classes that I'm putting out for astrology, music that I'm producing, and much more. Again, thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your energy, and watching this forecast today. I wish you a blessed lunation, a blessed lunar eclipse in Pisces, and eclipse season. I wish you a life of divine purpose and glory, for you are worthy of that, and you are free to make those decisions. Blessed be.